They said she was toxic, a creature born from the war, untouchable, unclean. People crossed the street to avoid her, but when I saw her shaking in the rain, I didn't see a monster. I saw someone the universe had already given up on, and for some reason I couldn't walk away. The rain on Nerath 9 didn't fall, it hissed. Each drop carried the sting of chemicals from the old wars, eating tiny scars into metal and memory alike. I was halfway through my delivery route when the storm hit, the kind that made even the drones fly lower out of fear. My windshield flickered with static from the radiation mist, and for once, I thought about turning back. Then I saw her. She was lying beside a collapsed comm tower, drenched in neon light from a broken billboard. People were passing her like she was a pile of garbage, heads down, collars up. No one looked twice, but something about the stillness of her body caught me. Not dead still. More like she was fighting to stay small, invisible. Her skin shimmered faintly through the mud, green, smooth, like wet stone under moonlight. And her hair, black, tangled, soaked, stuck to her face in uneven ropes. For a moment, I thought she was one of those hybrid corpses they dumped after the treaty. Then she moved. Just a twitch, but it was enough. I killed the engine and stepped out. The rain stung my face. The air smelled like burned plastic and fear. "Hey," I called, keeping my voice low. She didn't react. Her eyes were open though, silver, wide, unfocused. The kind of eyes that didn't see you, but remembered something worse. A vendor from across the street shouted, "Leave it! They're diseased!" Another laughed nervously. "Touch her, and you'll glow by morning." Maybe I should have listened, but I've never been good at doing the smart thing. I crouched beside her, careful, hands trembling from the cold and something else, pity maybe. Her skin was freezing, yet humming faintly like a dying engine. When I tried to lift her, she flinched but didn't fight. Just whispered a sound, soft, broken, mechanical. I wrapped my jacket around her and carried her to my truck. No one helped, no one cared. As I drove off, the windshield fogged, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of my own heartbeat. She wasn't just another refugee. She was something the universe had tried to erase. And somehow, I'd picked her up anyway. By the time I reached the outpost, the storm had drowned the world. My shelter wasn't much. Half a repair shop, half a coffin with lights. The generator coughed when I powered it up, filling the air with the smell of rust and warm oil. I set her down on the cot, trying not to think about the trail of mud and ash she'd left across the floor. She looked small there, smaller than she had in the street. Her clothes were a patchwork of rags, burned in places, and her skin beneath the grime glowed faintly when the lights flickered. Not human, that much was obvious. But there was something heartbreakingly human about the way she folded her arms across her chest, like she was trying to hold herself together. I found a blanket, rough but clean, and covered her. She didn't react. Not a sound, not a flinch. Just breathing, shallow and careful, like she was scared even of air. "You're safe here," I muttered. Though I doubted she understood, I rigged up the decon unit, an old shower I'd salvaged from a derelict ship. The pipes rattled before spilling out water that steamed faintly in the cold air. I turned back to her and pointed. "You need to clean up. You'll feel better." Trust me, she didn't move, just stared, those silver eyes locked on me, neither trusting nor refusing, simply calculating. I sighed, rubbed my temples. "Okay, I'll look away." When I stepped outside the curtain, I heard it, the water hitting the floor, then a quiet gasp that turned into a sob. Not loud, not dramatic, just raw and terrified. I froze, hand halfway to the light switch. I wanted to say something, anything, but words suddenly felt clumsy. So I waited. After a while, the sobs faded, replaced by the sound of dripping water. When she stepped out wrapped in a towel, I almost didn't recognize her. Her skin gleamed like polished emerald, the scars across her arms catching the dim light in ghostly lines. She looked alive. For the first time, she looked at me, really looked, and I saw a flicker of something I hadn't seen in years. Not gratitude, not trust, hope. I didn't sleep that night. The rain eased into a distant hiss, and the outpost settled into its usual rhythm. The hum of the heater, the soft tick of metal cooling. She sat on the cot, knees pulled to her chest, wrapped in one of my old shirts that looked 3 sizes too big. Every few minutes, her eyes flicked toward the door, like she was memorizing the exit. I tried to act normal, fiddled with a busted filtration valve, pretended not to notice her watching me. But the air between us felt charged, like the pause between thunder and lightning. Every time she shifted, the lights in the room dimmed for half a second, then came back. She wasn't just different. She was connected, to the current, to the machines, maybe to something bigger. "You hungry?" I asked finally, holding out a ration bar. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet. She didn't move. Her gaze flickered from the bar to my face, measuring. I placed it on the table and stepped back. After a moment, she reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and took it. No words, just a small, uncertain nod before she ate. That was progress. While she chewed, I studied the faint pattern of scars on her neck. Too precise to be natural, too neat to be random. Lines curved like circuit traces under her skin. I'd seen marks like that before on military prototypes back when I wore a uniform. "You're not a refugee, are you?" I said quietly. No reaction. Just those silver eyes staring, unreadable. Then she did something that made my heart skip. She lifted her hand and touched the old water unit, just with her fingertips. The heater groaned, then steadied. Power surge. Controlled. Intentional. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "Guess you're better at fixing things than I am." She tilted her head, curious, maybe even amused. For a brief second, her mouth curved upward. Not quite a smile, more like a memory of one. That tiny flicker was enough to undo me. For the first time since the war ended, I felt the room warm in a way the heater couldn't explain. Maybe it wasn't just machines she could fix. Morning came slow, grey, and heavy. The rain had stopped, but the silence outside felt worse. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that usually means someone's listening. She was still awake, sitting near the heater, fingers tracing the metal vent like she could hear something I couldn't. When I stepped closer, she glanced up, alert, cautious, but not afraid. "Not of me. You don't sleep much," I said softly. Her voice came out small, rough, like unused machinery scraping to life. "Noise," I frowned. "You hear it?" She nodded, tapping her temple. "Everywhere." That was the first time I'd heard her speak. The words were fragmented, but the way she said them, like they'd cost her something, made my throat tighten. I turned to the workbench and flipped on an old terminal. More out of nerves than need. The console flickered and a string of encrypted data appeared across the screen. Not mine. It was broadcasting from her. "Project Halo. Clearance denied," it read in faint green text before vanishing. I froze. The name hit like static in my skull. Project Halo, a failed fusion experiment from the war, meant to merge alien neural cores with human engineering. Every test subject had been terminated. Supposedly, I looked back at her. "You were part of it, weren't you?" Her expression didn't change, but her hands trembled. They made noise in my head. I stopped hearing me. Something in my chest cracked open. I didn't know what to say, so I just crouched beside her, careful not to touch. "You're not them anymore. You're here, with me." Her gaze softened. "Safe." I hesitated because I wasn't sure. Outside, the faint buzz of a patrol drone bled through the walls. Then another, closer. My stomach sank. "They found us," I muttered. She stood, moving with quiet precision. The lights flickered, the generator howled, and for a split second the air vibrated, like the whole building inhaled. Then silence again. The drones outside dropped from the sky, smoking. She looked at me, eyes glowing silver. I stopped the noise. I should have been terrified, but all I felt was awe. The outpost smelled like ozone and smoke. Sparks still danced across the floor where the drones had fallen. I stared at her. This quiet, trembling girl who had just shut down military-grade machines with nothing but a thought. She wasn't breathing hard, wasn't even sweating, just calm. "Too calm, what are you?" I asked, not out of fear, but disbelief. Her gaze flickered toward the shattered window. "Not what they wanted." That line hit harder than any explosion. Outside, the mist carried the low whine of engines, reinforcements scanning for the energy surge she'd unleashed. My gut twisted. We didn't have long. I grabbed my tools, shoved what I could into a pack and tossed her my jacket. "We need to go now," she didn't argue. She simply nodded, slipping the jacket over her small frame. The sleeves hung past her hands, but she looked ready, like she'd already decided to stop running from what she was. We made it halfway to the truck before the sky cracked open. Not lightning, something worse. A searchlight swept the ruins, followed by a sharp voice through the static. "Target confirmed. Project Halo asset active. Terminate." I pushed her behind me, heart hammering. "Stay low!" A plasma round tore through the wall, heat searing my arm. She gasped, her hands glowing brighter, light spilling from her veins like liquid fire. "No," I whispered. "If you fight, they'll trace it," her voice broke. "They will kill you." "Then let them try." For a heartbeat we just stood there, her eyes locked on mine, fear melting into something else. Then she reached forward and pressed her palm to my chest. The world went silent. The next instant light erupted, not blinding, not violent, just pure. It rippled outward, swallowing the noise, the drones, the burning sky. When it faded, we were alone. No soldiers, no searchlights, only stillness. She sagged against me, trembling but alive. "I stopped the noise," she whispered again. I smiled through the ache in my chest. "Yeah," I said, holding her close. "And maybe you fixed me too." Outside, the first real sunlight in months broke through the clouds, soft, golden, impossible, the kind that made you believe the world could start over. They called her a weapon, a threat, something to be erased, but the truth. She was the quietest miracle I ever met, in a world that forgot what mercy looked like. She reminded me it still existed, in the smallest moments, in the simple act of staying. Maybe the universe doesn't get fixed by heroes or soldiers. Maybe it starts with people who refuse to look away. And if that's true, then maybe saving her didn't just change my life. Maybe it saved what was left of being human.